The day I got locked up, my cop wife married her side piece. The second I got out, she sobbed and begged me to take her back. That marriage license was just a cover. I'm still pure. I laughed cold and walked away. Next day, she walked into our gutted house and had a full mental breakdown right there. The day they loaded me into the prison van. Lynn Chushia was standing outside the Civil Affairs Bureau in that red dress I knew better than the back of my hand. The guy next to her, her partner, Gu Chuna, I watched them walk out through the van window, one after the other. Guy was holding two bright red marriage certificates. Lynn Chushia glanced down at them, panicked, and never looked back. The officer escorting me nudged me. Shun Yen, quit staring. I looked away, twisting the cuffs on my wrists. The cold metal felt exactly like the divorce papers she'd handed me the night before. She'd been standing outside the detention center, visiting room back then, talking to me through the glass. Shinyan, sign it first. It's just procedure. I'll pick you up and bring you home once the mission's over. I asked her, what kind of mission requires you to divorce me the same day I get locked up? Her eyes were red. I can't explain it. Just trust me this once. I believed her. She was my wife. After all, the woman I'd loved for 7 years. I signed the papers. Her hands were shaking when she took them. I thought she was hurting for me. Now I know she was just scared I'd see right through her. When the van pulled away from the Civil Affairs Bureau block, Gaena suddenly looked up and spotted me inside. He didn't flinch. He even smiled at me. That lazy winner's smirk sitting in that van. I realized for the first time these 3 years in lockup wouldn't just break my body. They'd break my heart. 2, I was convicted of unauthorized access to police systems and disclosure of operational information. The evidence was airtight access logs on my computer, data sent from my home network an hour before the op went down. Ginjia testified personally. He said I'd resented Lynn Chushia for working constant overtime and used my tech skills to mess with her cases. Lynn Chua never defended me. At the trial, the judge asked her, do you believe the defendant, Shinyan, had the ability to commit this crime? She stayed quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, technically, yes. That one sentence killed every last one of my defenses. I got 3 years. She didn't show up to see me off that day. She was too busy getting her marriage license. First night in lockup, I lay on the hard bunk, the clang of the cell door ringing in my ears. Old Lou, my cellmate, asked me, what did you do to get in here? Buddy, I said, my wife and her partner set me up. He snorted. You better watch your back when you get out. Then I closed my eyes and fished a tiny memory card out of my pillow. I'd hidden it in the lining of my collar. The last time I changed clothes before lockup, it held a full backup of system logs and a recording I never got the chance to turn in. That night, I was supposed to help Lynn Chushia track down an unusual login. She said there might be a mole on the team. She didn't dare use the office computers. So, she asked me to trace the proxy address on our home air-gap device. I found it. The proxy didn't lead to me. It led to Guanya. I was just about to tell her when the cops busted down the door. Gunya stood at the back of the crowd staring at me calm as anything and said, Shinyan, don't fight it. In that second, I knew I'd been framed, but I didn't get a chance to say anything. The evidence was swapped. My computer was seized, and Lynn Chua was looking at me, not with trust, but with doubt. In 3 years, I never wrote her a single letter. She came to visit 3 times. First time, she said, Cheyenne, the marriage between Chuanya and I is just a cover for the mission. Don't overthink it. Second time, she said, when you get out, we can start over. Third time, she said, can you stop looking at me like that? This is hard for me. 2, every single time, I only asked her one question. Have you reopened the old case? Every time she stayed silent. I got it. It wasn't that she couldn't dig up the truth. She just didn't want to, because if she kept digging, she'd have to admit she'd thrown her own husband in jail with her own hands, then married the real killer that exact same day. The day I got out of prison, the sky was crystal clear. I slung a beat-up duffel over my shoulder and walked through the gates. Lin Chuxia was standing right there, white button D down, long hair pulled back. She looked just as sharp and put together as she did 3 years ago. Only the ring on her finger was different. The second she saw me, her eyes welled up. Shenyan. I froze. She took 2 steps forward, then stopped dead. I'm here to take you home. I stared at her. Which home? Her face drained of color for a second. Our home. I laughed. The one you've been shacking up in with Ginjia for 3 years. Tears burst down her cheeks. It's not what you think. Getting the marriage license was just an assignment. I'm still clean. I almost snorted laugh when I heard that. 3 years. She made me wait 3 years behind bars. And this was the explanation I got. I'm still clean. I pulled a document out of my bag and handed it to her. She glanced down, and her hand started shaking instantly. It was an eviction notice. I said, I paid for that house in full before we got married. You and Guena have crashed there for 3 years. Be out by 12 p.m. Tomorrow. She snapped her head up. Hen Yen, do you really have to do this? I held her gaze. Lena, didn't you move out the day I went to prison? She sobbed and grabbed my sleeve. I never betrayed you. I had a really good reason. I pried her fingers off my arm one by one. Save your excuses for the court. I turned and walked away. Her heart's shattering scream came from behind me. Shenyan, I waited 3 years for you. I paused for a second, but didn't look back. You waited 3 years for me. I died 1,000 times inside those walls over the same 3 years. My first meal after getting out, I didn't go to any house. I hit up a noodle shop on the west side of town. The owner, Old Joe, saw me and dropped his strainer straight into the boiling broth. Shenyan. I nodded. Uncle Zhao. 1 beef noodle soup. He stared at me for ages, eyes glistening. He kept muttering over and over, You're out. That's all that matters. You're out. Old Joe used to be Lin Chuxia's informant, and the key witness I'd tracked down before I got locked up. He vanished out of nowhere 3 years ago. At the trial, the prosecution said he'd left town to lay low and couldn't testify. But I always knew something was off about that. When he set my bowl down, he locked up the shop. It was just the 2 of us inside. He sat down across from me and lowered his voice. Are you still looking into what happened 3 years ago? My hand froze mid-chopstick lift. Uncle Joe, what do you know? His face went pale. The night before everything went down 3 years ago, I saw Ginjia meet a guy called Brother Dao. You got framed the next day. I looked up at him. Why didn't you say anything back then? Old Zhao gave a bitter laugh. My daughter was being followed. Someone sent me photos. Said if I opened my mouth, she'd be dead. I set my chopsticks down. Who threatened you? He shook his head. No clue. But I found out later the number that sent the text was linked to a burner phone Gwen I used to have. He pulled a beat-up envelope out from under the counter as he spoke. I didn't dare send it to you, and I didn't dare give it to Officer Lin either. She'd already married Guena by then. I was scared she wouldn't believe me. 3 things were inside the envelope. A blurry photo, a USB drive with an audio recording, and a bank transfer. Screenshot. The sender was Ginjia's cousin. The recipient was Brother Dao. Amount was 200,000 yuan. And the memo said, payment for goods. I put the items away carefully. Uncle Zhao, I'll hand these over to my lawyer. He panicked. Don't do anything reckless. Ginjia got promoted to deputy captain now, and Lin Chuxia still has his back. You just got out. You can't take them on right now. I smiled a little. I didn't just learn how to bite my tongue during those 3 years inside. Right then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. Lin Yua's voice came through the line. Where are you? I didn't answer. Her voice sharpened with urgency. Shenyan, cut the crap. We'll talk about the house when we get back. Guy is on a mission right now. He can't just move out of the blue. I asked, is living in my house part of his mission? 2? She went silent for a second. That apartment's close to the bureau. Good for work. I laughed. Lin Chuxia, you really do have everything figured out. Her voice softened. Shenyan, I know you're hurt, but things were so complicated back then. Shai and I got married to get close to the head of a crime ring. The guy only trusted people who came as a couple. I asked, "So, you turned that fake marriage real and moved into my wedding apartment?" She panicked. "No, nothing happened between us." "Nothing at all. Then why didn't you stay in the safe house the Bureau arranged for you?" She went quiet again. I kept going. "Why use my house? Why make me sign the divorce papers? Why didn't you reopen my case in 3 whole years?" Only heavy breathing came through the line. I said, "See, you can't even answer that." She started crying because I was scared. Scared of what? Scared the mission would get blown. Scared she and I would get hurt. Scared you'd hate me when you got out. I laughed. "Did you ever stop to think I might not survive in there?" She went completely silent. I hung up. 30 minutes later, I showed up at the law firm. Suzu Shioan was my college classmate, the only person who believed me before I went to prison. He slid a stack of documents across the table. "Everything you asked for is ready. Property deed, payment records for the apartment purchase, prenuptial property notarization, receipts for all furniture and appliances, plus the calculated rent they owe for illegally occupying the place for the 3 years you were inside." I flipped through them. Everything was there. Suzwan looked at me. "You really want to kick this off today?" I said today. He nodded. "I'll arrange for movers and notaries to go over tomorrow morning." I said, "Wait, we're not waiting for them to move out on their own." Suzwan laughed. "The apartment's yours. The eviction notice has already been delivered. If they don't move out by the deadline, we do a formal eviction per the law. Their personal stuff will be packed, logged, and stored in a warehouse temporarily." I set the envelope. Old Joe gave me on the table. "One more thing." Su Xian opened it, his face darkening slowly. "If this is real, you got a shot at reopening your case." I said, "Getting my conviction overturned isn't all I want." He looked up. I said, slow and deliberate, "I want Guena to pay for what he did. And I want Lin Chusha to see with her own eyes what kind of trash the man she protected for 3 years really is." Su Shiyuan was quiet for a moment. "What about her?" I stared out the window. "She's not part of my plan anymore." That night, I checked into a hotel. I'd barely finished the check-in process when Lin Chusha showed up. She stood at my door, eyes red and puffy. "Cheyenne, we need to talk," I said. "My lawyer will be in touch." She shoved her hand against the door to stop me from closing it. "Don't do this. I know the apartment's yours, but we have memories there." I looked right at her the day you moved in with Guangya. Every last one of those memories was tainted. Her face went deathly pale. "I told you we didn't dash." I cut her off. "It doesn't matter if you did or not." She froze. I said, "What matters is you chose him." Right before the door clicked shut, I heard her sobbing. "I did it for the mission." I laughed on my side of the door. "Mission, fine. Tomorrow I'll give her a mission. 2. Watch the apartment she lived in for 3 years get emptied out, piece by piece. 10 a.m. The next day, I stood under the apartment building that was supposed to be our wedding home. 220 M, right in the city center. I bought it before we got married. Supervised every step of the renovation myself. Back then, Lin Chuxia said she wanted a bright, sunny living room, so I knocked down an entire wall to install floor-to-ceiling windows. She said police work was exhausting, and she wanted a bath when she got home. So, I gutted the master bathroom to put in a heated jacuzzi tub. Turns out I spent 3 years in prison, while Ginjia got to enjoy everything. That was mine. 6 guys from the moving company showed up, 2 from the notary office. Plus, Suzwan. I rang the doorbell. Gaia answered. He was wearing my gray loungewear. I recognized it instantly. I bought it before I went to prison. He frowned the second he saw me. "Shiny, can you just leave us alone?" I stared at the clothes on his body. "Take it off." He froze. "What?" I said, "It's mine." Gyuingyi's face dropped immediately. "You just got out, and you're already being this petty." I didn't bother arguing with him. I turned to the notary. "Log this. Resident Gaia is in unauthorized possession of the property owner's clothing." The notary nodded. Gaia's face burned with embarrassment. He lowered his voice. "Shunyan, don't think you can call the shots now that you're out. You know exactly why you ended up in prison 3 years ago, don't you? I stared right back at him. You know better than I do. His eyes flickered. Suzwan stepped forward and held up the documents. Mr. Good. This property is Mr. Shinyan's personal premarital asset. You and Ms. Lin Yu have already received the eviction notice with a deadline of 12 p.m. Today, we are now here to conduct a property inventory and enforce the eviction in accordance with the law. Gaia sneered. Does Lin Chuxia know about this? I said she will soon enough. The movers walked in. First thing they hauled out was a piano in the living room. It was a wedding gift I got Lin Chuxia. She couldn't play, but she said it looked nice sitting there. After I went to prison, I heard Genji had brought his coworkers over for parties all the time. They treated my place like his personal lounge. Second was the wedding photo on the wall. I told the workers to take it straight down and toss it in a cardboard box. Gaia stood off to the side, his face getting darker by the second. Shinyan, are you out of your mind when Chuxia comes back and sees this? What do you think she'll say? I said, what she thinks is none of my business. 11:30 Lin Chuxia burst through the door. She was in her uniform, hair mess. The second she saw the half-empty living room, she froze. Cheyenne, what the hell are you doing? I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching her moving out. Her eyes welled up instantly. This is our home. I said, wrong. It's my house. She ran at me and grabbed my wrist. You can't do this. Our wedding photos here. The sofa we bought together. The bathtub you installed for me. That gardenia plant you planted with your own hands. I glanced at the balcony. The gardenia was long dead. Gaia's cigarette butts were stuffed in the planter. I pointed at it. You mean this? She followed my gaze, her face going white as a sheet. Guy's face shifted. He hurried to explain. I didn't know that plant was yours. Linya didn't even look at him. She walked over slowly, squatted down in front of the planter, and picked out the cigarette butts with trembling fingers. In that moment, she finally seemed to realize that the memories she kept talking about had long been ruined by the very person she'd handed them to. I turned to the movers. Keep going. The master bedroom door was opened. Guy's coat was on the bed in the nightstand. There was a photo of Lin Chua and Guangya. They were in casual clothes, leaning close to each other, the ocean in the background. I picked up the photo and looked at Lin Chusha. She panicked. That was taken when we were on a mission for cover. I nodded. So, getting the marriage license was a mission. Taking photos was a mission. Living in my house was a mission. Sleeping in my bed was a mission. 2. Her voice shook. We didn't sleep together. Gaia spoke up, his voice low. Cheyenne, don't insult Chua. I laughed. You're wearing my clothes. Living in my house. Sleeping in my master bedroom. And now you're lecturing me about insult. His face turned livid. The notary recorded every single moment on camera. Lin Chua finally snapped out her daze. She dashed right up to me, voice shaking. You're collecting evidence. I shrugged. Habit. 3 years inside taught me to save proof for every single word exchanged. Tears rolled down her cheeks. You weren't like this before. I held her gaze. I trusted you too much back then. The second the words left my mouth, all the strength drained out of her. She had to grab the wall to stay on her feet. 12 on the dot. The apartment was almost entirely cleared out. All my stuff was gone. Their personal belongings were packed, logged, and stashed in a temporary storage unit. Last, the locksmith changed the door locks. Lin Chuxia stood in the empty living room, trembling all over. She stared at the faint faded mark of the wedding photo on the wall. Suddenly, screamed and collapsed to the floor. Shinyan, you can't do this to me. I leaned against the door frame. You did the exact same thing to me the day I went to prison. Lin Chua. She was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Genjia reached out to help her up, but she swatted his hand away hard. Don't touch me. Genya's face twisted. I watched the whole thing. No satisfaction at all. Just felt like it was too late. Way too late. I turned and left. The second the elevator doors slid shut, Su Shiyuan handed me his phone. Lao finished restoring the recording. I tapped play. Gyuing's voice came through clear. I'll handle Shinyan as soon as he's locked up. Lin Chua will have no one but me to trust. The elevator drifted down. I stared at the flashing floor numbers. The first domino had finally fallen. I passed the recording to Suzwan. He listened to it only 3 times before speaking. This is good enough to submit as a lead for a retrial application. I asked, is it enough? He shook his head. Not on its own, but it's enough to pry the case open. We still need proof. Genya had a direct financial stake in that leak years ago. I pulled out the transfer screenshot Lao Zhao gave me. What about this? Su Xian's eyes lit up. If we can link this transfer account to Brother Dao, we can blow the whole old case wide open. I asked, where's Brother Dao right now? He flipped through his files. Got 5 years back then. Should still be inside. I smiled. Then let's go pay him a visit. Next day, Suzu Shiyuan and I went to the prison to see Brother Dao. His real name was Xiao Dubao. The raid years ago was targeting the smuggling ring he worked for. He saw me through the glass, froze for a second, then grinned. Shunyan, you out. I stared back. You know me. He laughed. No, you're the poor schmuck who took the fall for Guanya. Su Shiyuan hit record immediately. Brother Dao didn't care. He leaned back in his chair drawing. I got a tip back then. Said the raid was moved up. Told me to bolt fast. The tip didn't come from you. It came from a middleman Guena hired. I asked why did all the evidence point to me later. Brother Dao snickered because Guena needed a fall guy. You're tech-savvy. He could get access to your home network ahead of time. He had someone plant proxy server traces on your devices, then got your wife to personally confirm you had the technical skills to pull it off. My fingers curled into fists slowly. I'd guessed it all along. But hearing the truth out loud still felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Suzwan asked, do you have proof? Brother? Dao glanced at me. Yeah, but why should I hand it over? I said, what do you want? He grinned. I want a sentence reduction. Su Shiyuan said, if you provide leads that help crack the old case, you can apply for meritorious service per law, or it can be considered for sentencing adjustment. But we don't get to decide the final result. Brother Dao nodded. Deal. I got a recording of a call between Gaia and the middleman back then, plus a photo of the payment card. The stuff is at my old place with my mom. When we walked out of the prison, the sky was overcast. Su Shiyuan said, if what Brother Dao said is true, Genjia didn't just frame you. He's also suspected of leaking classified information, perjury, and taking bribes. I nodded. What about Linua? Su Shiyuan shot me a look. Her testimony back then might not amount to a crime, but it's at least gross negligence. I said, nothing. This outcome didn't surprise me at all. Lin Chuxia wasn't the mastermind, but she was a hand that shoved me in there. I got back to the hotel that afternoon, and Lin Chua was already waiting in the lobby. She was pale, her eyes bloodshot. Shunyan, I need to see you. I said, not a good time. She blocked my way. I know you went to see Xiao Dubao. I stared at her. News travels fast. She spoke in a sharp, urgent tone. He's a criminal. You can't take everything he says as truth. Genjia did handle some things improperly back then, but he'd never frame you. I laughed. You still believe him? After all this time. Her eyes darted nervously. I don't believe him. I believe in evidence. I pulled up the audio recording on my phone. Guy's voice boomed across the lobby. Once he's locked up, Lin Chua will have no one to trust but me. She froze completely. That's impossible. I cut the recording. Aren't you the one who believes in evidence? Her lips went white. She reached for my phone, but I stepped back. She grabbed at thin air. Shunyan, where did you get this recording? Why didn't you tell me sooner? I looked right at her. I told you Gaia was shady before I went to prison. She froze. I went on. You said I was only suspicious of him because I was jealous. Tears rolled down her face. I didn't know back then. You didn't want to know. The words nailed her to the spot. People in the lobby started glancing over. Linshaw finally lowered her voice. Give me some time. I'll get to the bottom of this. I said, no need, she panicked. I'm a cop I'm way more qualified to look into this than you are. I stared at the uniform on her. Linkia, you're the least qualified person for this. Her face went white. Why? Because once you start digging, you'll have to face how badly you've been wrong these past 3 years. She swayed on her feet. I walked past her toward the elevator. She yelled after me, Shinyan, if Guinar really is dirty, I'll arrest her with my own 2 hands. I didn't turn around. Worry about getting your own together first. Guiny's retaliation came fast. That same night, an anonymous post popped up on a local forum. The title read, Release convict Sean maliciously retaliates against ex-wife cop empties their wedding home to drive her to breakdown. The post was dramatic as hell. It claimed I had become radical and violent after going to prison, that Lin Chuxia had waited 3 years for me without starting a new family, that I'd harassed her the second I got out, emptied the house, and even threatened her with the old case to force her to remarry. There were several photos attached. Lin Chuxia sobbing on the floor of the empty house. Gaia tried to help her up only to be pushed away and a shot in my back as I stood at the doorway, watching coldly. The comment section blew up immediately. Released convicts are so terrifying that cop ex-wife has it so bad. Waited 3 years for him just to get retaliated against. Emptying the whole house. That's next level petty people like this shouldn't ever get let out of prison. When Su Xiuan sent me the post, I was sorting out the address of Brother Dao's mother. I read through it and only said, Gather evidence, he said. Already did. The post IP is untraceable. But the photo angle looks like it was taken from the building opposite your living room window. I said, Gaia. Su Xian nodded. Most likely. I laughed. He was in such a rush to paint me as a lunatic. The more desperate he was, the more scared he was. The next morning, Lin Chuxia showed up again. She wasn't in uniform this time. Standing at the hotel entrance. Her voice. I didn't post that. I said, I know. Her eyes lit up for a second. But the next moment, I added, but you sure played the crying part pretty well in those photos. Her face went pale. Shinyan, do you have to stab me like this? I didn't answer. She pulled a document envelope out of her bag. These are the things I've kept over the past 3 years. Your letters, my prison visit records, and the mission brief for Guanya and I. You'll know the truth once you read them. What's between him and I is really not what you think. I didn't take it. Her eyes reened. You won't even look at them. I said, Your innocence doesn't need my validation. Her voice shook. But I want you to know. I stared at her. Lin Chua. The worst pain isn't whether you slept with him or not. She froze. I went on. It's that you stood by his side when I was in prison. She went completely still. That single sentence hit harder than any screaming match. She finally pulled the file bag back slowly. I'll look into Genjia. I said, Watch your back before you do that. She looked at me confused. I didn't explain. If Guena could frame me, he could frame her too. Sure enough, at 400 p.m., Linua was called in for a talk with her superiors. The reason there were procedural irregularities in her testimony in the Shenyang case back then, and she may have submitted incomplete mission declaration documents during her marriage registration with Gaia. Her voice was shaking when she called me Shun Yan. They're saying, I violated regulations. I was standing on the street, holding the old phone I just picked up from Brother Dao's mother. You said getting the marriage license was just a mission, right? Mission paperwork should be complete. She went silent. I asked, You don't have the full paperwork. Her breathing picked up. Guanya said it was an emergency back then. We got the license first. Sorted the paperwork later. I shut my eyes for a second. That was so hurt. She always said she trusted evidence. But one emergency line from Guanya, and she bought every word of it. Lin Chua. I said, You didn't get married for the mission. You broke the rules for Guanya. Muffled sobs came through the phone. I didn't know this would happen. Now you do. I hung up that night. Data recovery on the old phone was completed. There was an audio recording inside. Guy's voice was crystal clear. Shinyan's too good with tech. If we keep digging, he'll trace it back to me sooner or later. Plant the evidence solid before he figures out what's going on. Another man asked, will Officer Lin buy it? Guena laughed. Of course she will. She hates people questioning her judgment more than anything, especially Shinyan. I sat in front of the computer, staring at the audio waveform. Suzuansat bisidime. Quiet for a long time. Once this comes out, Genji is done for. I said, not enough. He looked over at me. I opened another file. It was Ginga's reimbursement records for utilities, parking fees, and property management fees registered under my house over the years. The reimbursements were drawn from a special mission fund, and the mission filing date was 2 months after I went to prison. In other words, get married first, move in first, file the mission later. Lin Chua's so-called innocence didn't hold up even procedurally. Suzwan asked, you're turning this into? I said, yes. He hesitated. Then Lin Chuxia will get penalized too. I closed my laptop. The consequences she deserves shouldn't be carried by me. The day Lin Chuxia was suspended for investigation, Guangyi didn't go see her. He went to the office and shifted all blame onto her. He said the marriage mission was Lin Chua's initiative. He said moving into my wedding house was Lin Chua's prearrangement to stabilize Xinyan's mood after his release from prison. He said he was just following orders. When Lin Chua heard what he said, she was completely stunned. She ran to Genji's office. The door wasn't fully closed. I wasn't on the scene, but someone sent the footage to Su Shi Yuan. In the footage, Lin Chua was deathly pale. Gaia, you're saying I was the one who brought it up. Gaia sat behind his desk, his tone totally calm. Chua, someone has to take the fall for the procedural mistakes now. So you're making me take the fall. You're Shenyan's ex-wife, and you were a witness in the original case. It makes more sense for you to take the heat than me. It was as if she was seeing him for the first time. That's not what you said before. You said getting the marriage license was just for the mission. You said all the paperwork would be sorted out properly. Gaia looked at her. I did. Her voice shook. The filing date is 2 months from now. Gaia went silent. Linua lunged forward, grabbing his collar. You lied to me. He shook her off violently. Linua, don't act like you're some innocent victim. When Xinyan suspected me back then, you chose not to believe him. You were the one who brought him the divorce agreement to sign. You were the one who gave that testimony. No one held a gun to your head. The force of the shove sent Lin Chua slamming into the wall. Gungya stood up, straightening his collar. Now that you regret it, you want to dump all the blame on me. Tears rolled down her face. I put him behind bars for you. Guy sneered. You didn't do it for me. You did it for your own glory, for your mission, to prove you weren't wrong about your call. That line broke Lin Chua completely. She dropped to a squat on the floor, sobbing too hard to speak. The video cut off here after watching the whole clip. Suzy Yuan cursed. Gaia is such a piece of I said nothing. He looked at me. You don't feel bad for her. I stared at Lin Chua's disheveled face on the screen. Feel bad. Maybe 3 years ago I would have. Now, all I think is she finally heard what I've been saying this whole time. She just only believed it when it came out of Genji's mouth. That afternoon, the investigation team officially accepted the evidence Su Xiuan submitted. Old Zhao came forward as a witness. Brother Dao provided the audio recordings. The forensics report on the old phones' recovered data was finalized. My case entered the retrial review process. And Gu Qina was suspended from duty when the news broke. Lin Chuxia sent me a message. I saw the recordings. I didn't reply. She sent another. I'm sorry. Still no reply from me. The third message read, if I believed you just once back then, would you have never gone to prison? I stared at that line, my fingers hovering over the screen for a long time. Finally, I replied, yes, just that one word. She never texted again. That night, Xiao Millen, Lin Chua's mother, tracked me down. She'd always looked down on me, kept saying a tech guy like me didn't deserve her cop daughter. The second she walked into the cafe, she slammed her bag on the table. Xinyan, how far are you going to push Chuxia? I looked at her and Chao. She brought this on herself. She flew into a rage. She married Guangya for the mission. Why can't you understand that a man should be more magnanimous? I laughed. If I married another woman, the day your daughter went to prison, would you tell me to be more magnanimous? She choked, unable to speak. I kept going. The down payment for your retirement apartment. I paid that, right? Her face shifted. Why are you bringing that up? To remind you. Don't spend my money while calling me ungenerous at the same time. Her face flushed pale. Then read. You volunteered that as a gift to your elder. I nodded. I volunteered it back then. Not anymore. I pulled out a lawyer's letter. If you're not willing to negotiate paying that money back, we'll settle this in court. Xiao Millen's voice went shrill. Shun Yen, are you insane? You just got out, and you want to drive our whole family to ruin. I looked at her. The day I went to prison, your whole family already treated me like I was dead, didn't you? She couldn't say a single word. I stood up and left. I just reached the door when I saw Lin Chuxia standing there. She must have heard everything. Her face was deathly pale, eyes swimming with tears. Shin Yen, I'll pay back the money. My mom owes you. I said, talk to my lawyer. She choked back a sob. You won't even say one extra word to me now. I looked at her. There's nothing left to say between us. Hasn't been for a long time. The day my retrial review was approved, I stood at the courthouse entrance staring at the notice. My hands were perfectly steady. 3 years. The day I've been waiting for is finally here. Dozens of reporters showed up. One asked me, Mr. Chun, if the verdict gets overturned, who do you want to talk to most? And what would you say? I answered myself. I was right to stay alive. The crowd went dead quiet for a full second. Then flashbulbs exploded everywhere. Linkia stood outside the crowd in plain clothes, her eyes bloodshot. She tried to walk over, but investigators stopped her. She was a person of interest now. Contact with me was off limits. I glanced at her, then looked away immediately at the pre-trial hearing. I came face to face with Ginjia for the first time. He wore a dark coat, his face schooled into forced calm. When he saw me, he even smiled. Cheyenne, you moved fast once you got out. I stared right back. It's your turn to go in. His eyes went icy. Don't get cocky. A couple of audio clips proved nothing. I nodded. That's why we also have transfer records, call logs, system logs, and the backdated admission file you forged. His face finally fell once the hearing started. Su Xian submitted evidence one by one. One original system logs confirmed my computer was remotely controlled at the exact time the leaked data was uploaded years ago. 2. The proxy IP used for the remote control is linked to the temporary SIM card once used. 3. Audio clips and transfer records provided by brother Dao confirmed Ginjia pass operation intel through a middleman. 4. Lin Chuxia's original testimony only confirmed I had the technical skills to leak the data, not that I did so intentionally. Ginjia used it as the core evidence to push for my conviction. 5. The mission file for the marriage registration is suspected of being backdated. Every piece of evidence hit Ginjia like a sledgehammer to the face. He stayed calm at first. Then cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Finally, he turned to look at Lin Chua, who sat in the gallery face ashen. He looked like he still expected her to stand up and defend him. She didn't. She just stared at the evidence on the table, tears streaming down her face nonstop. When it was her turn to testify, she stood up. Her voice, so versatile, was almost inaudible. I made a wrong judgment back. Then I didn't fully verify the leads Gaia provided, and I didn't push to reinvestigate the doubts Shenyan raised. She paused, then looked up at me. I have wronged him. Gaia's face twisted violently. Lin Chuxia, are you out of your mind? The judge banged his gavel order in the court. Linkia continued regarding the marriage registration mission. I admit there were procedural violations. The actual registration date was earlier than the date on the filed record. Moving into Shinyan's premarital property was not an organizational arrangement either. It was my own wrong decision. The court erupted in murmurs. Ginjia completely lost his cool. Linua, you're pinning all the blame on me. You were the one who signed the papers. Linua closed her eyes. I'll take responsibility for what I did. You won't get away with yours. I stared at her for the first time in 3 years. She didn't mention the word mission after the hearing ended. Gunya was placed under travel restriction. The retrial was officially launched. Linkia walked towards me, but Su Xiuan stopped her. She stopped 2 steps away. Shen Yan, I know it's too late to say anything now. I said, then don't. Tears fell again. I just want to tell you I'll cooperate with the investigation. I nodded. That's the least you can do. Her face went pale. It was a cold thing to say, but it was the truth. I didn't owe her gratitude just because she finally did the right thing. A late correction doesn't erase past mistakes. I walked out of the courthouse. The sunlight outside was blinding. Su Xiuan asked me, how do you feel? I thought for a second like I just climbed out of a well. He smiled. Then keep moving forward. I was just about to get in the car when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I picked up and Ginga's voice came through. Shinyan, let's meet. I laughed. You scared? He went silent for 2 seconds. Name your price. We can negotiate. I said, I want you behind bars. His breath hitched instantly. I hung up. This time it was his turn to wait for the iron cell door to slam shut. The place Guena picked for our meeting was an abandoned auto repair shop. Suzy Yuan tried to talk me out of going. I said he's already panicking. He'll slip up. So I brought a voice recorder and reported my whereabouts to the authorities beforehand. The shop was pitch black inside. Genjia stood next to a total car, a cigarette pinched between his fingers. The second he saw me, his first line was, "You're one tough son of a. I stopped 5M away from him. You talk way too much," he smirked, his eyes cold and vicious. Shiny Yen, you think a retrial is going to overturn the verdict. Don't forget most of the evidence went through official channels back then. Even if I'm caught, you're not going to walk away completely clean. I said that why you're so desperate to see me. His face dropped. I can pay you off. I laughed. How much? 5 million. 3 years of my life for 5 million. He ground his teeth. 10 million. I took a step closer. Gaia, do you really think everything has a price tag? He said, when you get out of prison. You move on if you blow this up. Lin Chuxia goes down. 2. I stared at him. You're using her to threaten me. He laughed. You love her, don't you? I laughed too. Your intel's ancient. His smile froze. I continued. What happens to her is her business. Taking you down. That's mine. Gyuing Yi's face turned completely dark. Shun Yen, don't push me. I said, what are you going to do? Frame me again. He didn't answer. Just pulled a stack of photos out of his pocket. They were shots of me meeting old Joe, Brother Dao's mom, and Su Xiuan after I got out of prison. He was trying to prove I was colluding with witnesses to falsify testimony. I glanced at them. Nice shots, he frowned. I said, you stalked a retrial applicant and his witnesses. Hand these in. They're way more useful than you think. He realized he'd up and tried to yank the photos back immediately. I put my hand down to stop him. Easy. Footsteps sounded from the distance. 2 investigators stepped out of the shadows. Guy's face drained of color. You called the cops. I said, I just filed a report. You walked in here with the evidence yourself. The investigators moved in, ordering him to cooperate. Genjia snapped all of a sudden, lunging at me to grab the voice recorder. I dodged aside. He was still screaming insults when they pinned him to the ground. Shen Yan, you're a loser. You're nothing without Lin Chua. I squatted down, looking right at him. I'm doing just fine without her. His face looked like he'd just been slapped that night. Genya, Clear's throat, was officially taken into custody. Witness stalking, attempted retrial obstruction, suspected perjury, and classified information leaks in the old case. All the charges lined up, and he had 0. Way out. When the news got out, Lin Chua showed up outside the repair shop. She stood behind the police tape, watching as Genjia was led away. When he passed her, he suddenly laughed. Chuxia, happy now. You ruined me for Shinyan. Lin Chua stared at him. No hatred in her eyes, only emptiness. He didn't ruin you. You did this to yourself. Gaia sneered. You got a lot of nerve talking to me like that. He begged you to believe him back then. Did you? Lin Chuxia's face went deathly. Pale, gushing you kept twisting the knife. You thought he was in the way too, didn't you? You thought he didn't understand your job, right? You loved having me tag along on your missions, your work events, staying in his apartment with you. Admitted, Linua swayed on her feet. I stood a short distance away, didn't move towards her. Gaia was shoved into the police car. Linua squatted down by the curb, covering her face and sobbing. She finally saw the truth, but by the time she did, no one was waiting for her anymore. The day my retrial verdict came down, Lin Chuxia called me 23 times. I didn't answer a single one. The court announced the original verdict was overturned. Severe flaws were confirmed in the case evidence. Multiple key pieces had been deliberately planted. I was innocent of all charges I'd been convicted of when the word innocent dropped. I didn't cry. I just stared down at my hands. The day they cuffed me 3 years ago, I thought these hands would never be clean again. Now they were finally mine. Su Xiuan clapped me on the shoulder. Congratulations. Shunyan, I said, thanks. Reporters swarmed. Mr. Shun, will you pursue accountability next? Yes, including your ex-wife, Lin Chuxia. I paused for a beat. Everyone who deserves to be held responsible. That line blew up across the internet instantly. Lin Chuxia was waiting for me outside the courthouse. She wore a black wool coat, hair wind-led, clutching an old photo album. She spotted me and walked over fast. Shunyan, I stopped. Her eyes were red-rimmed. You're finally cleared. I hummed. She gave a wobbly, tearful smile. That's great. That's so great. I looked straight at her. Probably not great for you. Though, her face drained of color. I know. I'll take whatever punishment they give me. I'll cooperate with the investigation. But, Shunyan, can we start over? I thought I misheard. She flipped the album open in a panic. It was full of photos from when we were dating. The college sports field. Our tiny rental apartment. The day we renovated our first house. She was wearing a hard hat, grinning in the bare concrete shell. She turned page after page, tears dripping onto the paper. I know I messed up so bad. I know you hate me. But Gaia and I never consummated the marriage. Getting the license was just a job. I'm still pure. Not that line again. I stared at her, a wave of exhaustion hitting me. Lin Chua, why do you always think this is what I care about? She froze. I said, whether you slept with him or not doesn't matter anymore. Her face went as white as a sheet. How can not matter? I never cheated on you physically. You betrayed my trust. She went completely rigid. I kept going. The night they took me away. You didn't believe me. The day of the trial. You didn't believe me. The 3 years I was in prison. You never even tried to dig up proof of my innocence. The day I got out. Your first line was asking me to understand why you married Guena. Tears streamed down her face nonstop. I said, you kept your so-called purity. But you destroyed my life. She swayed on her feet. Cheyenne, I'll make it up to you. I laughed with what? She choked out. I'll quit my job. I'll make a public apology. I'll give the house back to you. I don't want anything else. Just give me one more chance. I shook my head. The house was always mine. All the blood drained from her face. I turned to leave. She suddenly lunged forward, wrapping her arms around me from behind. Shiny, please, let's get remarried. Reporters were everywhere. Flashbulbs went off like crazy. I pried her fingers off one by one, exactly like I did the day I got out of prison. She was sobbing so hard she could barely stand. You used to say, no matter what mistake I made, you'd always take me home. I looked back at her. That was before. What about now? Now the house is empty. She froze. I didn't look at her again. That night, the video of her begging me to remarry hit the top of the trending list. Some called her trash who got what she deserved. Some said she was pathetic. Some called me heartless. I didn't read any of it. I went to that house. It had been fully renovated. The spot where our wedding photo used to hang now held a blank canvas. I'd planted new gardenias on the balcony. This time I'd take care of them myself. The next morning, Lin Chuxia went to the old house. She probably thought I'd only taken a few things. But when she opened the door, All she saw was a completely empty room. No wedding photos. No couch. No piano. None of the mugs she bought. There's no trace left of the life we used to share. Even the door lock's been changed. The cleaning lady told her. Mr. Sean finished the handover yesterday. No unauthorized personnel will be allowed in here from now on. Linkia stood at the doorway and suddenly let out a broken, hysterical cry on the security footage. She slowly squatted down, clutching the photo album, sobbing so hard she nearly passed out. This time, Gunya wasn't there to catch her, and neither was I, the day Lin Chuxia got her official disciplinary punishment. It was freezing cold. She was stripped of her honorary titles, suspended from her post, and placed under further investigation. Genya's case also entered the prosecution phase. He was charged with perjury, leaking operation intel, bribery, and framing others. The old brother Dow case was also reopened for full reinvestigation. I sat in the law firm signing document after document. First, the state compensation application. Second, the reputational damage lawsuit. Third, the incidental civil compensation claim against Gunya. Fourth, the settlement of rent, property damage, and asset losses incurred during Lin Chuxia's illegal occupation of my premarital property. Suzy Yuan asked me, "Are you really going to nitpick every last cent with Lin Chua over this part?" I said, "She lived there for 3 years. She might break down." I looked up at him. I broke down in there. 2. Suzy Yuan didn't push it further. In the afternoon, Lin Chuxia showed up at the law firm. She looked way thinner than before. She sat across from me, no makeup on, dark circles heavy under her eyes. Suzwan handed her the settlement documents. She flipped them open and stared for a long time. Occupancy fee, furniture damage, property management fee, renovation, restoration cost. She trailed off mid-read, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Shinyan, do we really have to do this to each other?" I said, "Yes." She looked up at me. "You never used to quibble over money with me before." I nodded. "That's why you two thought you could spend whatever you wanted. No questions asked." Her face went white. I kept going. "The retirement apartment your mom Xiao Millen lives in will be handled as a separate case based on the nature of the transfers. If she's willing to negotiate, we'll sign a repayment plan. If not, we sue." She said hurriedly, "I'll pay it back." I said, "That's her debt. Not yours. But she's my mom. Then what was I to you?" She went silent. She didn't have the right to answer that question anymore. She lowered her head, fingers crumpling the edge of the paper. "I'll sign it." Her hand shook the entire time she signed. When she finished, she put the pen down. "Shinyan, can I ask you one last question?" I didn't say a word. She asked anyway, not waiting for my permission. "If I had trusted you just once back then, would we still have a home together?" I looked at her. "Yes." Tears burst out of her instantly. That single word hurt worse than any insult. It told her she had once had everything, and she'd thrown it all away with her own hands. She covered her mouth, shoulders shaking with sobs. I didn't hand her a tissue. Suzwan did. She took it and mumbled, "Thank you," before she left. She suddenly pulled a set of keys out of her bag. "These are the old keys to your place. I kept them all this time." I said, "The lock's been changed." Her hand froze midair. After a few seconds, she slowly pulled it back. "I know." She walked to the door, then paused. "Shinyan, I'm going to move out of this city." I said, "Safe travels." She looked back at me. The last glimmer of hope in her eyes died out. I showed up to Genjia's trial. I wasn't there to gloat over his humiliation. I was there to get closure for the old me. He stood in the defendant's box, face ashen. No trace left of the elite police officer. He used to be the prosecution. Read out the facts one by one. How he passed intel to Brother Dow through a middleman. How he planted false decoy evidence beforehand. How he used Lin Chush's trust in him to shift all suspicion onto me. How he married Lin Chuxia under the pretense of mission after I was locked up and moved into my premarital property. Every word hit like a nail. Linua was there too. She was sitting in the back row, deathly pale. When Genji spotted her, he smirked out of nowhere. Happy now. Lin, Chuxia, the judge, warned him to cut the crap. But he had nothing left to lose and spoke right up. I admit I framed Shenyan, but Lin Chua isn't innocent either. She had every chance to dig into the truth, and she didn't. She knew Shun. Yin kept proclaiming his innocence, and she didn't listen. She didn't trust me. She trusted that she could never be wrong. Linua flinched hard. I didn't turn to look at her. Guy went on. You think you won. Shenyan, you did 3 years inside. She's never going to be yours again. None of us won. I stared at him. You're wrong. He glared right back. I said, I won myself back. His face went stone cold. The trial dragged on all day. Guangyao was charged with multiple counts pending formal sentencing. When court adjourned, he was being escorted out when he stopped dead right next to me. The hatred in his eyes was gone. Only utter humiliation left. Cut me some slack. Shenyan, I held his gaze back when I was being taken away. He'd stood at the end of the hallway and said, Don't blame Chusha. She just made the right call. Now, he was begging me to cut him a break. I said, You burned that bridge yourself. They dragged him off. The heavy metal door clanged shut. I stood there listening for a long time. The sound was exactly the same as it was 3 years ago. Only this time, I wasn't the one on the other side. When I walked out of the courthouse, Lin Chusha caught up to me. She wasn't crying, just staring at me. I'm leaving tomorrow. Shenyan. I nodded. She said, I'm going to work at the grassroots level in the Northwest. Start over from scratch. I said, Good for you. She gave a bitter laugh. You're still as cold as ever. I looked at her. Water only gets cold when it's frozen through. Linua, her eyes welled up. Can it thaw? I didn't answer. She already knew the answer anyway. She pulled a photo out of her bag. It was from our wedding day. She was in a wedding dress, grinning from ear to ear, and I was standing next to her, my eyes only for her. Can I keep this? I said, Whatever you want, she mumbled. Thanks. Wind swept through the courthouse entrance. She suddenly saluted me. Not a wife saluting her husband. It was a person who'd made a mistake, saluting the person she'd hurt. I'm sorry. Shenyan. I looked at her, gave a small nod, received. Her tears finally fell, but she didn't beg again. This time she turned and left. I turned too. We walked in opposite directions. Neither of us looked back. A year later, my new company moved into the Nanqing Science and Technology Park. It wasn't a big firm focused exclusively on secure audit systems for judicial electronic evidence. I'd spent 3 years in prison refining this idea. If the evidence chain had been transparent enough back, then if logs couldn't be planted arbitrarily, if every access left a tamper-proof record, I would never have been taken down that easily. I can't change the past, but I can stop other people from going through the same hell I did. On launch day, Suzwan sent a plaque with 4 characters on it. Evidence is irrefutable. I tease him for being corny. He said corny's good. Everyone gets it. Old Joe showed up. 2. He's not laying low anymore. His noodle shop's back open. His daughter got into college. He squeezed my hand and said, Shenyan, you really crawled out of hell. Huh? I said, lucky I didn't fall all the way in the day the state compensation hit my account. I didn't throw a big celebration. I donated part of it to the legal aid fund for ex-convicts and pumped the rest into the company. Someone asked me once, don't you hate them? I said, I used to. What about now? Now I'm too busy. Busy with work. Busy with life. Busy building my own life back from scratch again. Lin Chuxia sent me a letter later. It was postmarked from the Northwest. She said the wind there was brutal and the nights were freezing. She said she started out as a lowest-ranking patrol officer and finally understood how crushing a wrongful accusation against an ordinary person could be. She didn't dare ask for my forgiveness. All she wanted was that one day when I heard her name, I wouldn't feel sick to my stomach anymore. At the end of the letter, she wrote, Shenyan, I once had a family. I threw it away with my own 2 hands. I finished reading, put the letter in a drawer, and didn't write back. Some things don't need a response. You don't have to walk back into the past. Once you know the truth, Xiao Milan never came looking for me again after she paid back the money. I heard she moved to the Northwest with Lin Chua. When Genjia's verdict came down, he got slammed with a long sentence. His appeal got thrown out immediately. I didn't bother checking the result myself. When Suzwan told me about it, I only said, "Got it." I went back to my newly renovated apartment that night. The living room lights turned on automatically the second I pushed the door open. The city's night skyline spread out beyond the floor to ceiling windows. The gardenias on the balcony were in bloom, their white petals so clean they almost glowed. I changed my shoes and walked the balcony to water the flowers when they hauled me into the police van 3 years ago. I thought I'd never get to come home again. I learned later that home isn't a place where someone waits for you. It's a place no one can ever kick you out of. My phone rang suddenly. It was Suzwan. "Boss Shun, tomorrow's press conference is all set. The media is going to eat up this electronic evidence security system built by you, the man who was wrongfully convicted and later exonerated." I said, "Don't use my sob story for clout." He laughed. "Relax. We're selling expertise, not trauma." I hung up, sat on the couch, and turned on the TV. The news anchor was reporting a new regulation. Storage and review procedures for electronic evidence would be strictly tightened from now on. I smiled watching the screen. All the darkness that once crushed me had finally become fuel for me to keep moving forward. The doorbell rang once. I opened the door, and the courier handed me a small package. The sender was Lin Chusha. Inside the box was that old wedding ring from years back, plus a note that read, "I'm really returning it to you this time. Wish you peace and happiness for the rest of your life." I stared at the ring, turned and walked the balcony, and dropped it into an old metal box. The box already held a copy of the verdict from 3 years ago, a memory card, my release papers, and the not guilty verdict. They weren't wounds anymore. They were just proof. Proof that I was once pushed all the way down and proof that I climbed all the way back up. I turned off the lights when it got late. The city outside the window was still lit up. I stood by the door, glancing at this home that belonged entirely to me. No Linua here, no Guangya, no old wedding photos, no belated explanations or tears from anyone, just clean floors, a quiet couch, and the gardenias on the balcony blooming perfectly.